Welcome to this new series I'm creating where I'm going to jump into a bunch of different video games and try and get some cool pictures. So I decided to start with Forza Horizon 4, a very pretty game. So shouldn't be too hard to get some nice photos. When I jumped in, it was autumn and I decided, let's not take any photos of cars. Let's try and get some landscapes and other interesting photos. So let's go through and see how I did. But first we'll start with the basics of photo mode in Forza Horizon and how I got around the system. So first off, the way I got around and started looking at things that I wanted to shoot was I started with the drone mode, which is quite good in Forza. It's not as limited as the camera in terms of movement, but you could take photos with it, but there's a few more options in the actual photo mode. It's not as limited as how far you can go away from the vehicle, but just keep in mind that when you're going to scout for locations to shoot, you're going to have to remember where you've gone because you need to drive the vehicle much closer to use photo mode. But it's quite good for composition. Now moving on to the actual photo mode itself, you get quite a wide range of zoom. You can zoom back to 0.5 times and zoom all the way into 20 times. Now I wouldn't recommend zooming all the way into 20 times unless you can find something really creative to do with it, but I thought that it didn't really look good in any scenario that I used it. You can also adjust the roll because I think the people at Forza like their Dutch angles and some different shots for taking photos of cars. However, at least on the Xbox controller, it seems nearly impossible to get the roll back to 0, and you're just going to end up quitting out to fix that up. So there's a few different ways that you can focus. One that I've just done there is I've pressed X, and the other is you can do it manually. In shutter speed there, it's not really important unless you are actually taking photos of vehicles because it will show the motion blur or not. The focus here, adjusting it manually will adjust it out at steps at a time. I did use this a little bit, but focusing with X is just as simple really. So here we'll just get the focus on this shot just out onto the leaves a little bit further. Now with exposure I tend to leave this at 50, which is default, because that's basically perfect exposure and there's no reason to change that. Now aperture in this game, just a bit of a warning here if you have motion sickness, it gets pretty full on. So you can see when you've got the aperture all the way up that it's blurring out, destroying the background. You can then go back and change your focus to see where your focal length is at. So we've got it on the leaves there, and then we bring the aperture all the way back to where we want it. I honestly think you don't really need to have the aperture any higher than 20 for most of the time. It might be different when you're shooting vehicles, but especially for these landscape style photos, leave it pretty low. Contrast, once again, I left this default because I'm going to edit after I take the photos in software on the computer, mainly Lightroom. Color is exactly the same. These options are obviously here if you want to edit in-game and post your pictures on there, but I left all of this at default. Same with brightness, sepia, and vignetting. The one thing that is cool about vignetting is that it's not just a standard vignette. You can change how the vignette comes in. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, if you don't have the ability to edit photos afterwards, then go ahead and use these settings. But the main things I focused on was, I guess, shutter speed if you're taking photos of cars, focus, exposure, and aperture. So there we have a few of the different vignettes, and then when I actually went to take the photo, I just removed the HUD and took a screenshot, because if you actually take the photo, you get a Forza watermark, which I didn't want the watermark because I was trying to make something without an annoying watermark. But you can change the watermark position, but it doesn't really do much for me. So I took the screenshot and then edited afterwards. So let's get into the photos that I actually took now. It was hard for me to actually go away from the roads at first because the autumn leaves on there, and I was trying to go with the theme of autumn, so I wanted the autumn leaves. This is the first shot that I took. We got some leading lines, and then I have the edit there, which I've just sort of bumped up some contrast and some other things there. I think that shot turned out pretty nice. And then I decided to have a look for something different, so I got on my drone and started looking around, and I came across a little boathouse with a boat out the front, and this could make for an interesting shot. Now, the time when I took this photo was a completely different time of day that I'm on the drone here, but if I could have taken the shot at this time of day, I think it probably would have been an even better shot, but it still looks alright. And unfortunately, well, at least from what I found, you can't change the time of day in photo mode, which would be a cool feature if you could do that. But regardless, here's what the composition for the boat was, and there's the photo that I took. And then taking it into Lightroom, I just bumped it up a little bit, and I think it looks really good. So then moving on, I wanted to do something a little bit more interesting. I came out of this tunnel and saw the bridge. I guess it's a train bridge. There's a train on it now. There wasn't one when I took a photo. It'd be kind of cool if there was, but regardless, coming up here, I found a tree that I wanted in the foreground, and I kind of thought I wanted to do something different. I'll shoot vertically. For something different, and I mean, I guess it could probably work as maybe like a phone wallpaper or something, but kind of looks pretty bad on video. The other thing that I did is I didn't really get my composition right, so you can see it's not the greatest shot. It's okay, it's a bit meh, but then in editing I had to do some cropping and some other things, and I think it turned out alright. It pops a lot more. Now I went up into this forest, and when I went back in there to get this footage, I had no idea where I took the photo, so this footage is not going to match up at all. Sorry to destroy the illusion. It's not going to match up with the final picture, but basically it had just been raining and there was all this water on the ground, and the sun was, I think, going down, and it was shining through the trees and looked really cool. So I was like, okay, I've gotta get like a forest shot here. So went for a low angle. I think I may have zoomed out as well to get more of a wide angle sort of shot, but anyway, this is pretty much the shot that I came up with. So that's the shot there, almost. Yep, so there it is. So we got some water on the ground with the reflections and the puddles, and then just enhanced everything in Lightroom, and I think it turned out really nice. Looks good. For my final shot, I wanted to do something over in the city, and I also wanted to try a night shot. It's obviously not nighttime here when I'm doing the drone footage, but it's quite a long day cycle, so I really couldn't have been bothered to wait for night to come around. I think this composition is a lot better than the photo that I actually took. But there we have it at night, and after editing, I think it really pops a lot more. So they're all the photos that I took in my time in Forza. I think I might do another episode in Forza at some time, but maybe I'll do some cars, because that'd be sort of interesting, I guess. So if you have any favorite cars, then let me know, and I'll see if I can include them in there. But otherwise, you can find all the pictures that I took, all of the edited final pictures, on the Predictable Amusement Flickr account. I'll have a link in the description, but if you want to download them, use them as wallpapers, or do whatever you want with them. There's no watermarks or anything on them, and yeah, just have fun. So until next time, well, I'll catch you later.